Newsmax TV, I'm Kathleen Walter. Joining us now is Michael Batts. He's the chairman of the Commission on Accountability and Policy for Religious Organizations, an organization created by Republican Senator Charles Grassley of Iowa after a series of hearings into how the IRS regulates churches and other charities. And Michael, thanks so much for joining us today.
Great to be here.
Your commission has presented its report to Senator Charles Grassley, and in it you call on the IRS to get rid of a 60-year-old policy barring clergy from endorsing political candidates. As it stands now, if pastors endorse candidates from the pulpit, they could lose their tax-exempt status. Can you share with us your concerns?
Well, sure. The concerns are over the fact that the law and its administration today are simply unenforceable and have created a very serious problem in America with respect to enforcement of the tax laws. There's some specific examples of why we feel that way. For example, the law itself and the guidance that the IRS has published related to the law is very vague, and so religious and nonprofit leaders are never quite sure where the lines are as far as what is permissible communication. There's also an issue with respect to the fact that a number of religious organization leaders consider the law to be unconstitutional. And in fact, we mentioned in the report that last year, more than 1,600 pastors deliberately gave sermons in their churches speaking about candidates, specific candidates. Some of them even transcribed their sermons and had them sent to the IRS with a request to be audited. That's been happening since 2008, and the IRS has not reacted to that challenge. And we also document in the report a Pew Research study that was done in 2012, confirming the fact that, which is something that we knew, African-American churches are very active in the political arena. In fact, our commission had a special meeting with African-American church leaders where we obtained a good understanding of the culture and the activities there. And we understand that the African-American church has been politically active since the beginning of its existence here in America. And, there are good reasons for that, social, political, moral, cultural reasons for that. For example, the Pew Research study indicated that 45% of African-American churchgoers indicate that they hear sermons at their churches about particular candidates. An African-American churchgoer is 8 times as likely to hear a sermon about a particular candidate than their white mainline Protestant counterparts.
So is there a double standard here in terms of adherence to this policy?
Well, it's not that it's just about a double standard. It's the fact that we have an unenforceable, vague law. The reality is that the IRS has no interest whatsoever in going into houses of worship all across the country and attempting to change them fundamentally or revoke their tax exemption for understandable reasons. And that's where the commission has come in here with a very innovative new approach to solving this challenge and this dilemma.
Mm-hmm. Has this law had a chilling effect on political speech nevertheless? And if so, which religious groups have most suffered as a result of this policy?
Well, there's no question that this law has a chilling effect on speech as it relates to political topics, especially in the religious arena. And one of the main reasons for that is the fact that the law and the related guidance is so vague. The IRS has said in its official publications that you have to look at all the facts and circumstances about a particular communication to determine whether it violates the law or not. It's not just whether you say something specifically endorsing a candidate or opposing a candidate. In fact, the IRS says, depending on the exact words you use or the timing with which you make the statement, you can be in violation of the law even if you don't specifically endorse a candidate. And so the fear of that kind of vagueness is great, and for good reason. If you cross the line, the IRS can revoke your exempt status. So absolutely, it's chilling.
You talk about fear. Is the IRS using this policy to bully religious organizations and leaders as it has bullied the Tea Party and conservative groups?
I don't think I would characterize it that way. Despite the challenges that the IRS has, I believe that generally the people who operate the IRS have a desire to do what's right. The issue is more the fact that it's a real dilemma, it's a real problem, and the IRS has a sensitivity to the fact that there are First Amendment concerns. Now, we do cite some examples of IRS enforcement that we believe are really problematic, but I think the bigger picture issue here is that the vagueness in the law and these issues are as much a problem for the IRS as they are for the organizations that have the concerns. In fact, I would say that there's been testimony before Congress by IRS officials indicating that this is a difficult area of the law to administer. One former senior staff member of the Senate Finance Committee referred to this as a hellish area for the Internal Revenue Service. So we think the Internal Revenue Service would be just as welcoming of a change as some of the organizations that have problems with the law.
And your commission also suggests that churches should not be able to spend additional funds for political communication and that policy should remain. Talk to us about why churches shouldn't be able to use tax-deductible funds for political purposes.
Well, Kathleen, that's a great question. And that's really one of the most important distinctions in terms of what these recommendations are about. Some have suggested that the law prohibiting campaign-related activities by churches and other 501c3s should be repealed in its entirety. The commission didn't go that far because there is a public policy aspect to this issue. When people are giving tax-deductible funds, making tax-deductible gifts to their church or to their charity, they're expecting that those funds are going to be used for religious or charitable purposes and not for a political campaign. And in fact, that's the idea here. So the commission is saying that if we're talking about speech or communication that does not involve the disbursement of funds, that should be permitted. But we should continue to prohibit the disbursement of funds when it involves tax-deductible donations.
And Mr. Batts, last question for you. During the recent IRS scandal, it was learned that not only conservative groups were targeted, but also a number of religious groups. Can you share with us whether you know whether this is still occurring?
Well, we don't really know for sure the complete extent of the IRS problems in that area even now. The congressional committees continue to investigate the issue. They're continuing to have hearings. They've continued to seek additional documentation. So I think it's really too early to tell the extent of the issues, but they certainly are of great concern.
All right, Michael Batts, Chairman of the Commission on Accountability and Policy for Religious Organizations. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Kathleen.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.